to spaceexplr. This is episode 16, and we have a very special guest on. And I'm very happy to introduce you to Joshua Davis. A little bit of background: he's an artist, educator, and amateur astrophotographer. He lives in Ohio, so anybody who's from that area, make sure to get in contact with him. And of course, there will be a social media links for that. With his wife and two children, he lives there. When he was a boy, he wanted to be an astronaut, archaeologist, or artist. He chose the career with the least amount of mathematics. He likes hunting down the deep space objects and photographing them. So, and you can find more information, astropics underscore by underscore Josh on Instagram. Of course, that link is going to be down below. And the website is called theartofjoshuadavis.com, where you're going to find a lot of great work. And that's the part of the artist you're going to find in there of Joshua. So Joshua, I just want to say a big thank you today for being on the show.
No, thanks for having me.
That's no problem. It's my pleasure. So, okay, so kind of the beginning stages. Everybody wants to know, that kind of big bang moment of, where does the journey in astrophotography start for the people? So can you kind of go back to that point of, like where you started to like getting curious about the topic, and how did it happen that you follow the topic?
I guess my love for space started when I was about 4, and that would have been 1983, 1984. And I was sick with bronchitis, and I guess it got really bad. My mom called the doctor. He said, it was autumn, just like it is now. It had just rained. It was cool outside. He said, take him outside, get him some cool air in his lungs. When we went outside, she had me wrapped up. And as I was sitting there just relaxing, and I looked up, and there was the moon. Huge crescent, beautiful stars all around, crisp, cool air, and instantly I was hooked. I wanted to know more about space. I wanted to know more about the moon. So yeah, that's what really hooked me. And then growing up, like I said, like you mentioned, I wanted to be an astronaut, wanted to be an archaeologist. So ancient cultures and things have always interested me, but space has always been a big interest, and art has been a huge interest. So my grandfather got me National Geographic subscription when I was a little kid. And I just remember flipping through the pages looking for any type of space news I could find, any type of planetary news. When the Hubble telescope went up, that was a big thing for me. The Challenger disaster, I remember being sick. I was homesick when that happened. And I just instantly bawled. I grew up in Akron. There was a teacher on board from Akron, Ohio. And, that affected all of us there, and all of us little kids there. It really, kind of, it was a big dose of realism for a lot of little kids.
Because it was live TV back then. It was like live. There
right.
was no pause button. Or just, it was
Nothing.
it was just going.
Yeah. So it was live, and I watched it live, and I remember asking my mom, "Did they make it? Did they make it?" And her just crying and shaking her head, and that's pretty big when you're a kid. That's pretty big.
Yeah.
So as I grew up, space has already been a big place in my head, a big place in my heart. My wife knew that. And back in about 2011, she purchased me a Meade ETX80, which is a small refractor, pretty affordable, but it's on an alt-azimuth mount. So it can track, but it's really good for moon photography and tracking planets and things like that, which is what I used it for. But we were having children at that time, and that took up a big amount of my attention. So just, recently I started getting back into the hobby and really focusing in on it. So
nice. So again, I love the story. Like 4 years old, do you still remember because you mentioned there was a moon, like the crescent. So do you still remember those things, or you just been told that that's what happened?
No, I remember that distinctly. Wow. Remember that. Yeah.
That is beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay. So talking about your journey again, and I do understand like what happened with the Discovery shuttle, and like what did you get? What type of, because I know it's a kind of touchy subject, but like what type of information did you get as a kid when that happened? Like what did it do to you? I mean, was it like of course it was part of it a negative impact, but have you looked at it and said there's something to that too?
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, and having kids of my own that are around that age, um, you want to be truthful with your children. You want to tell them what happened, but they don't need to know the entire details of events that happen.
Mm,
That might be a little too gruesome. Sometimes there's a filter and a balance to what you tell kids. But my
mhm.
parents were pretty open and pretty honest, and um, there's a lot of talking about what happened, and just dealing with the fact that that's part of space. That's part of
Yeah,
space exploration.
yeah.
Um, Unfortunately, horribly, but rockets blow up, and
Hmm. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, it's a very sad moment, for the Challenger, and I mean for all the astronauts on the Challenger mission, and like the
yeah,
families and all the people that watched it. I mean, it was definitely. I don't think that I've seen it, myself personally, but like of course people seen the videos after on YouTube or internet. So yeah, it's definitely a sad moment, but at the same time, it's what you're saying. Like it's part of evolution, you know,
sure,
like and that's probably one of the reasons why it's maybe was safer to like I don't know which STS mission was after, but I'm sure they kind of the safety cautions were kind of the probably one of the really big priorities for them. And
majorly, yeah,
major, yeah, exactly, and probably one of those major, I can, because of that accident, like it's incredible, like it's super bad what happened, but that put them in a same position as like, okay, we need to make it super safe as much as we possibly can. So and that and that continued. So talking again, so what pause are we talking about? Like, as you mentioned, did you pause when that happened, like with the Challenger? Did you pause on kind of space exploration for that moment?
um, I can't really remember too much. I mean, I remember the incident happening. I'm sure my interest was still there.
Hmm.
Uh, I distinctly remember in fourth grade, so I must have been 11 by then, building a model of the shuttle, painting it, learning how to weather a model. So that tied in with art as well.
Hmm.
And the teacher I had, uh, I remember her name, Mrs. Smith. She was really influential, and said, "Hey, just keep going with it. We're going to count this as part of your social studies grade." Um, so learning about the shuttle, learning, building it, it was fun, and so that kind of kept going off and on throughout the years.
Got it. Okay, got you. But maybe because becoming an astronaut was off the charts at that point after that happening, probably, right?
Well, no, I mean, the allure of space exploration's always been there. If somebody said, "Hey, here's a free ticket," and I could muster the physical requirements, uh, I would totally do it. Just as you grow up, you realize what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and to be honest, math, I hated it. I
As
just,
as everybody do. Look,
yeah,
you're not the first one or the last one.
yeah, it was a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So my strengths were language and um, history and the arts, and so that's what I kind of built upon early on.
Got it. Is there any famous astronauts from the state of Ohio?
Well, I mean, you've got John Glenn, I believe that's from Ohio, and to that point, this summer I just found that in 2018, the down in just south of Columbus, there's an area called Hawking Hills, very dark sky area, and they just or they just built the John Glenn Astronomy Park there. Um, and I don't believe it's a nationally recognized dark sky site, but
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So that's good in honor of the, yeah. So okay. So talking about the archaeology, because again, I want to touch these subjects too, because I think archaeology is one of the important topics to what's happening. Again, we want to explore the outer space, and other planets and galaxies and stars. We want to do all these great things, but at the same time, we still need to explore our planet and find like the origins, like where we come from, and just to track it down and see what happened before we was here. So why did you want to follow the archaeology? When did that get in on your radar? At what point?
To be honest, I think it has everything to do with being a little kid. I had a love of space. I had a love of Star Wars.
Hmm.
I really liked Han Solo. So my parents were like, hey, if you like Han Solo, check this guy out. And it was Indiana Jones
Oh,
movies. And so
there you
Harrison
go.
Ford, big inspiration. So I was like, oh, what's this all about? And, my mom, she's always trying to find real world connections to the media I was watching or whatever. And so it was, he's an archaeologist and some of these things are real that he's talking about or whatever. So, um, it was kind of like that little seed was planted, and then just visits to museums and stuff. You wind up walking to up at Cleveland Art Museum. They have a huge room that's just a medieval armory, and seeing all of those things when you're a little boy is pretty powerful and impactful. And then studying as you get older and realizing, back to astronomy, the ancient Sumerians were were studying astronomy and had detailed star maps and things like that, thousands of years ago. So kind of all ties together.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So the artist part, like, because I know you're still like very passionate about that. And again, I checked the website that you have, and I mean, there's some pretty incredible stuff going on there. So I
Thank you.
love, I'm a fan of your work, definitely. And you guys and girls who are watching, you should check it out too. And of course, the link is below for that. So how is that tied into your passion for archaeology, space exploration, and like where's that came about? Because I know you had a passion for that when it was younger, but when you do kind of pushed it on it and just leaned on it a little bit more.
Just I think a lot of it comes down to just capturing where I'm at in life at that moment. So that ties in with astrophotography as well. I mean, we have works of art over our head for our entire life, and some of us don't even realize it. And so I think just looking at everyday things and finding the artistic value, the aesthetic value of what's around us is important to me and has always been important to me. And then seeing if I could capture that somehow.
Mm. Yeah, and there's some Star Wars kind of like teams available, and there's some. Yeah, I mean, I love it. I love
Yeah.
these. It's really cool. So okay, so talking about back to the kind of astrophotography point, can you tell us like what type of equipment do you work currently?
Sure. Uh, like I mentioned before, my wife had purchased a Meade ETX80. It's just a
Hmm.
simple achromatic refractor. So I still had that hanging around. And during the lockdown, like many just starting out right now with astrophotography, there's a lot of extra time. So I'm an art teacher as well, and I was teaching from home, and there's a lot of extra downtime with the family and things like that. And I needed something to kind of like get me going, keep the wheels going. And I jumped online and I was going through YouTube, and like many people starting out, I found a lot of astrophotography YouTube videos. Trevor Jones from Astro Backyard was on there, and I'm like, wait, I have a telescope. I could really do this. So I did a little research and found out um, how to strip the OTA, the actual tube off of the Meade ETX, which was no easy feat, um, because the old ones, it wasn't removable. It didn't have a Vixen mount or a dovetail mount or anything like that. But I got it off, and then through trial and error, figured out what I wanted to get. So I wound up getting, um, I'm using that. I have a DSLR that I purchased. It's a Canon T100, pretty affordable. Um, like I said, my wife and I are both art teachers. So being kind of financially responsible with what little we have was quite. And then for my mount, I'm using an Explore Scientific IXOS 100, which is a go-to mount, equatorial, um, which enables me to track the stars as they move through the sky. So that's pretty nice to have. That was my big splurge over the summer. Was the go-to mount.
Got it, got it. So, I mean, would you have any recommendations for the people who are watching and they want to get involved with astrophotography, like on equipment? And like, would you say, is there like a price point? Let's talk minimum, a price point that
Sure.
somebody can get involved with, and to buy kind of the best possible equipment. Like, if you have something, um, just to give advice on that.
Sure. I mean, that's really going to be dependent on your own financial situation and where you're at
Mhm.
in life and what you want from it. If you want to take pictures of the planets and the moon, you're going to be wanting to get a different type of scope than deep space objects or galaxies and things like that. So knowing which direction you want to go with that is going to kind of narrow your choices down. If you're after just Milky Way photography, you can get away with a cheap DSLR, any made probably within the last 10 years, and some type of tracking mount you would want, I would think. So you're looking at about 400 US dollars plus the price of the
Mhm.
camera if you have to buy a new one,
Mhm.
um, at bare minimum, I would think.
So the
You know,
$300 would be like without the camera and whatever camera would cost.
yeah, I mean, minus the camera, like the Star Tracker, you're looking at about 300 to 400 US dollars or so
Mm.
to get a decent one. There are, I did a little research on this because I was curious, is there any DIY or do-it-yourself options? And there are many online. So,
Really?
yeah, so places like Thingiverse, which is a website where people will upload how to make like DIY projects and stuff. There's a couple different options. So if you are fine doing your own electronic work and your own programming and things like that, there's a lot of different options out there, especially for just
Yeah.
camera trackers through the night sky. Um, I attempted that and
Yeah.
failed
I,
miserably.
I
I
think,
failed miserably.
well, I think so. I mean, I'm sure there's people who are watching. They're very, that's where the strength for them is. Maybe they did some, similar kind of DIY, projects before. But
Yeah,
it could be again tough. It could be a long hours, and it could be that
yeah.
you need to buy all these parts, and at the end, the sum of that is going to be exactly the same as just buying a brand new one.
hmm
Maybe
could be pretty close, especially
could be
when,
pretty, yeah.
yeah, you're looking about the one I was looking at, probably about $100 to try to attempt to make the thing, get it 3D printed, get all the parts and pieces you need.
Yeah.
And then for a decent tripod, you're looking at about another $150, $200.
Mm.
So
It's better just saving up over time and just buying it, probably.
I
Who
think
knows?
so.
Who knows? Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, through all your personal experience, kind of, and it could be the question applies to both artwork and space photography, astrophotography. So, what would you consider as your like kind of the biggest achievement so far?
Um, I think mainly just getting my setup done over the summer and getting everything I needed, getting all the pieces in place. Um, I just snapped a couple weeks ago my first image of the Andromeda galaxy. So
Hmm.
really stoked about that. Um, Another big accomplishment I think is just learning the night sky, you know, learning the relationships between where Polaris is, where Cassiopeia is in relation to that, where Andromeda is in relation to that, and what comes up in the sky at what time of the day, what time of the night. Um, so I think that's a big accomplishment. If you know where stars are in the night sky, it feels good. There's some connection to our past with that, especially like I
Hmm.
mentioned before with the archaeology and the ancient Sumerians and all the ancient cultures looking at the night sky. Um, you know, it, it's kind of a big accomplishment. And it's always ongoing. So, I mean, it's just an ongoing thing of learning something new every day.
Oh yeah. There's so many, and that's that's the funny thing when I talk with the astrophotographers, just like yourself. You know, they say, "Well, like let's make another episode sometime in the future," because look, people doing the projects and people coming up with different sort of projects for the future. Because again, there's so many different things that you can explore. You know, it's just unlimited amount. So you know, there's always something to uncover because look, even for the space agencies like NASA, like they're uncovering something new every single
Oh
day, I'm
yeah,
sure. So
yeah,
and they have like pretty much almost like I know like it's limited capital, but like in my eyes, it looks like it's almost unlimited, you know.
yeah.
So yeah, so definitely there's a lot going on. So what do you think again, like the biggest part of, or maybe let me rephrase that, like what will be kind of the one thing that you would like to tell people? Again, it doesn't matter because we had people in the show who are 15 or 55 or over that, so the age is not the biggest, you know, play in here. But what would you say to those people who are watching, like just to get them inspired, or just for what reasons somebody should get involved with this?
You have a deep connection to nature and the cosmos. I mean, you're basically a time traveler, depending on your target.
Good point.
Especially if you're looking at deep space objects, you're looking at thousands of light years, millions of light years away. That's when that light left that area of space, and then it got here and hit your eyeballs, and or your camera sensor or whatever, and it took that long. And so you're connecting with nature that way. You're connecting with history. Again, talking about, our ancient past and the eons that we've spent staring at the night sky. You're reconnecting with that, and I think that's important, especially with all of the light pollution and busy schedules we all have. We get disconnected. Nobody's looking up at the night sky, so I think that's kind of important to take on and to do. So if you're interested in it at all, you know, just do it. Just get outside and look up,
Yeah.
see what you can figure out.
Definitely. And there's so many different things that we can talk about just that, because due to the light pollution, because, you know, we as people, we just kind of by the, you know, default of evolution, we just move to, instead of living in a places where you get like all of the great views of the sky with no like zero light pollution. Now we live in the cities, and
Yeah.
like so there's so many people, and you probably know a few more than a few who never seen a Milky Way before, and because they
Oh,
live
I was one of them. I grew up in a not heavily populated, but kind of medium-sized city, Akron, Ohio, for most of my life, and then I had the opportunity to go out west to the Western United States, to the state of Wyoming when I was in high school, and that was the first time I'd ever seen the Milky Way in person. And that was life changing. That was like realizing, oh, all of this is really here, and then I moved out of the city, and then currently the city I'm at has pretty decent skies. It's got, I don't know if you're familiar with the Bortle class of light pollution or whatever, but it has like a level 4, level 3.5 light pollution, which is pretty decent. But then we just purchased a property of about 5 acres out on top of a hill, and it has like a level 2.5. Like, so you can see the Milky Eye out there, and it's it's a conscious effort to kind of push away from being in a congested city type environment, um, with all of the ease that brings, to moving outside of those confines and kind of like changing your lifestyle. But I'm thankful we can do that.
Yeah, yeah, that is really cool. Okay, so, and again, the point that you mentioned, just coming back and connecting with the nature, you know, at the same
Yeah.
time. So talking about the nature, is there a specific meaning to the crow for you personally?
Um, I I I don't want to
Get any detail?
get into too many details, but it's pretty. It features pretty predominantly. Yeah, it's its own personal.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to say totem because I don't want to
Yeah, give
take
away the.
anybody's indigenous words or anything like that. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. But yeah, it has deep personal meaning for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I
That's
love
good.
drawing. It's just beautiful too, you
Yeah,
know?
it is beautiful. Yeah, because I've seen your work, and it's like crow, and there's a phone covers, and you can find all of that. I mean, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So, talking about what's happening in space technology, I mean, do you follow any of the trends? I mean, now with the SpaceX and Blue Origin, look
Oh
all
yeah.
these global companies that are looking to explore the space, and again with the rest of the space agencies in the entire world, like what type of news do you follow, and maybe you can recommend a few good sources for people to follow too.
Sure. Well, yeah, I have been following SpaceX since probably 2009 or so. Was very interested in the premise of what Musk was going after. I have mixed feelings of his Starlink, the constellation that's coming over. I've had already a couple photos that have been photobombed by that. Um, but in this field, you're taking multiple photos, minute long, 2 minutes long. So every once in a while, one of those goes away. You have to ditch it because it's got this big star trail through it or whatever from one of those constellation satellites going over. But I think it's exciting. I think commercial space program is probably here to stay. Um, I think it's pretty cool that he wants to keep going and pushing towards Mars. I think we should have been there already. That's my own personal view. I think we should have already had a moon base by now. If politics hadn't gotten in the way, probably we would have. Um, but I'm also really interested in, I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's the Breakthrough Starshot program.
No, what is it?
Um, it's called Breakthrough Starshot.
Okay.
Um, it's a light-driven nano spacecraft. So they'd be extremely small, but propelled towards Alpha Centauri with like a big giant laser. Um, so it started a couple years back. They're estimating it would probably reach 15 to 20% speed of light, and take about 20 to 30 years to get there. Um, so we'll see whatever happens with that. I think it's just pretty interesting. And so these nano craft, I guess, would have some kind of transmission ability. And so they would get pushed there. And then in about 4 years, you would start receiving messages back from them because it takes about 4 years for the light to
Oh,
travel.
even if it's a nano, like we're talking about very like small object, so is it still gonna produce something, even that?
Yeah, that's the question. I mean, I guess I was reading up on it, and about half of the technology that they're thinking they're going to need hasn't even been built yet.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of like waiting the time it takes for people to develop that technology to the
Yeah.
point that they can use it.
Yeah. Oh,
And
definitely. Like somebody has to work on something, and I'm sure. Like I seen a few articles there and then, about the propulsion systems, because that's kind of the biggest issue that we're having. Because we never kind of left the our solar system, instead of Voyager 1 and 2 just leaving our solar
right,
system,
yeah, and
but
that took 40 something years.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It took 40 like years since in 1972 or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's insane because we don't have the propulsion system, and what you're saying that
right,
will be close to the speed of light,
yeah,
and that's one of the problems. And if somebody like Elon Musk can work on these type of issues, or somebody brand new type of genius, and
yeah.
I think like the funny thing is, again, when you're talking about the politics, because I think myself, I'm a very kind of open-minded person, and like for me things would be very easy if people would kind of think probably the way you think, or myself.
Yeah,
If we just all pitch in, look, Elon Musk is raising capital for everybody pitch in, $10 or 10
right.
euros. And we're gonna build this, like, or what's like, what type of expertise do you have? Okay, come on board, and we
Yeah.
all kind of building together as this nation, to
Hmm.
something that will help us to propel us, to a different planets. But
Yeah.
somehow, like, even though there's trillions of dollars, euros, pounds, like yens, in the world, like all these companies who are looking to do, I mean, these great things. I mean, we're talking about living on other planet, which has never been done before. Somehow, like they lack the capital, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Like, I don't know how is this happening.
It's crazy. I think, if for, you know,
Because I would give 10 euros. I would say like, hey, Elon Musk, take
Yeah,
it, please do something with it.
yeah, yeah. I
I'll give
think the
more.
idea of having us on another planet or a moon as a form of redundancy, I think is kind of essential at this point, with what we know with near Earth asteroids and what we don't know
Mhm.
with those as well. I think, to avoid any type of, existential cataclysm, we're going to have to spread out. We're going to have to do those things. We're going to have to make a backup or, a second home somewhere. And we can still focus on the issues that are here. There's a lot of pollution issues. There's, the greenhouse gases and climate change. We can still focus on those things here and still address and still move on
Yeah,
with exploring the universe.
yeah. Because look, at the end of the day, like I love the fact, and that's why I love, like when I was a kid, like probably some of you heard the story. Like if you just focus on what's happening there instead of, look, there's a mask, there's issues, there's like, like there's a lot of issues that are happening right now, like in the States and Ireland, all over the world. But if we sometimes stop and just look up and just think, oh my God, we're so small. Like any of you probably who watches the show and it's not the first time, you probably know something like where we are in the Milky Way. And if you see the dot, I mean, and there's just only our galaxy. And I mean, there's so much more. There's billions of other galaxies.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're like, and we're talking about, oh my God, look, there's, my nail broke or something, those kind of small things. Like we're not supposed to even talk about those type of things.
Yeah.
But somehow we tend to focus on those.
Yeah. They all become kind of inconsequential when you start looking at galaxies that are 2.5 million light years away, and realizing there's trillions of stars in there. And, who's looking back, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's a lot of things happening in the space industry, space technology. So, like, maybe particular for your own personal, again, it could be coming back to the artwork that you produce or astrophotography. Is there some future projects that you're looking forward to?
The Artemis missions piqued my interest quite a bit. I'm pretty excited to see how that all unfolds and if we really are going to get some boots on the moon again, after 40, 50 years or so.
Crazy.
Um, it's it's beyond overdue in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think that's like kind of the big thing. And then seeing what these commercial programs, what role they're going to be playing in that push towards the moon and further on into Mars. I think those are the pretty big questions. And then also, is the James Webb Space Telescope ever going to be up in space? That's I've been waiting for that for how long?
Oh, it will be. It will be. The Wikipedia
Yeah,
says until 2024. So
yeah,
maybe they will update it later on. Who knows?
right.
Yeah, but definitely, I'm sure there is a plenty of great scientists that will say, oh, there is very specific reasons why you never landed second time on the moon since like 40 years ago. And, everybody has an answer, which is like, we just make things too complicated sometimes. But
Yep.
Coming back to kind of getting the education in place, is that something that's very crucial for astrophotographer, or is just like, do you go and buy telescope, the mount, a few softwares and you're ready to go? Or maybe you can recommend a few books that kind of will help to give them kind of the entry point into, this hobby.
Sure. Specifically, I noticed a couple different conversations online in forums and then on different media about processing, people struggling with processing. And so, you take these series of images, all of the same object, and then you put them into a program. I personally use Deep Sky Stacker. It just kind of aligns everything and stacks it all into one big image that you then process. So as an artist, as a digital artist, I've been using Photoshop for over 15 years. I would suggest for those that are using Photoshop to process their images that, you look at Astro Backyard. He's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor Jones is amazing. Uh, Look at YouTube for any type of like things that you specifically like want to do with Photoshop, you know, curves adjustment, masking, all that stuff. But also, you know, there is a book. It's called Adobe Photoshop CC Classroom in a Book. It's actually the official training workbook from Adobe. And it's chock full of useful things that you can use with astrophotography. So if, you know, if you feel like splurging on a book and you like something physical to look through instead of just watching a YouTube video, I'd suggest probably getting one, like a book like that would be quite helpful for the processing end.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So when it comes to kind of tracking the universe, I mean, is there maybe some books that you read about when it comes specifically, maybe like cosmology and astronomy? Is there some other books, or that could be kind of the one that you recommend?
As a basic, just general overview and
Yeah.
learning more about the universe, I think so. A Brief History of Time, The Universe in a Nutshell by Stephen Hawking. It will, I mean, you know, don't read it before bed some parts because you'll wind up falling asleep. But it is very informative. He writes for, you know, like the non-scientists from the most part. There are some pretty in-depth scientific parts that, you know, he lets you know you can just kind of skip over. But just to kind of get your head around how light travels, how time works, it's just nice to have in the background, you know, behind everything that you're doing. And then as far as tracking the night sky and stuff like that, I actually just ordered a tracker chart off of Amazon, like a star tracker chart where you can just move it to where you are right there at that time of the year in your hemisphere, and it'll show you the stars that are above your head. So hopefully that comes into use pretty decently. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I mean, there's a
Yeah.
lot when it comes to, you know, astronomy or just reading about it. There's a lot of, again, what you said, like Trevor Jones.
Mhm.
Everybody kind of mentioned his name on YouTube.
Yeah.
So of course, if somebody who was watching you didn't follow Trevor till now, till this show, make sure to do so. And there's a lot of different channels on YouTube. Again, free content to consume on internet. I mean, ebooks, books, courses. I mean, there's a lot going on. So it's just, you know, it's just taking action and trying something out, you know, and I'm sure you will get to the things, you know, that you want to get. But yeah, so I love the fact, again, the journey, 4 years old, you know,
Yeah.
kind of seeing the first view, and now you again seeing everything, so what happened since then, and now you're still back in place doing the astrophotography and doing some great artwork, by the way. So, you know,
Thank you.
so yeah, that again, it's your work, so you don't have to thank me. So, and you guys and girls have to make sure that you follow Joshua again on Instagram and check out his website, and of course those two links are going to be down below. But do you have something else like a Facebook and that people can get in contact with you, or that will be kind of?
No, I got off Facebook a couple years back. Basically, just the website is pretty good, and then the Instagram.
Got it.
Yeah.
So going, like, leaving the Facebook completely, was that a good decision for yourself? I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Hmm. A lot less anxiety, so that's good.
Here you go. You want to increase the level of anxiety? Here you go.
Yeah,
That's the pill for you.
that's
So
right.
that's it. Okay. Awesome. So Joshua, I really appreciate you being today on the show. I mean, there's a lot they'll learn about you personally. I mean, your personal journey and the things you're working on and your approach and things that you're looking forward to in the future. Because I'm on the same page with Artemis and James Webb Telescope, which very
Yeah.
excited to. So yeah, guys, one thing that I wanted to ask you before you're gonna go, if you just share this episode with a friend of yours who has this passion, or you think he might or she might have the passion for astrophotography, space exploration, make sure to send this episode to him or her. And Joshua, again, thanks for being on the show. And as always, I will see you in the next episode. Keep
Thanks for
exploring.
having me.